Greetings, folks. This is Scott, and you're tuning into A Woman's Place, the podcast where we break down all the policies and politics that affect the 51%. That's right, women are half the U.S. population, and Ashley and I are here to give you the facts about how today's events are affecting them. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Ashley.
Hi, Scott Osborne. How are you?
Oh, Ashley Brown, excuse me. I'm excellent. How are you?
Good. I want to show off this mug
Oh, my word. Will you look at that?
that Scott made for us, which I love.
Look
So
at
thank
that.
you.
Look at that.
We have merch.
We have merch. We're going to put this merch on our show notes soon, too. You too can have a Woman's Place mug. Exactly.
I know it.
Good point. Good point. So I hope people really took in the last show with Dr. Phil Wagner. And the best part of that show is that there's a part 2 coming because he was so interesting and we could talk to him about so many things that there is a part 2 coming on all things. It's hard to discuss the breadth of things that we got into, but how he sees men and masculinity, we really wanted to talk about that, and really how we see differences, how we talk to one another. He recommended some books that are great, so we went all over, but it was very, very welcomed.
I just downloaded on Audible one of the books he recommended that I'm looking forward to listening to because he was just a great person to talk to. He had great perspective, and it was so engaging. So, so what's on tap for today?
So today we're talking to Felice Trulaner, who is a local Sarasota. She's not a Sarasota native, but I know she went to New College, which is a Sarasota college. But in any event, she is currently, among other things, chair of the board of Ruth's List, which she will tell us about, but is a Florida-based organization dedicated to getting pro-choice candidates elected. And they do a lot of sort of the grassroots work that is critical. And we're going to talk about representation and why we need more, why it makes a difference who represents us. But let me just dive in and tell you a little bit about Felice because her corporate career, I would say, was in human resources. She worked for Coach and others for many years. But since her official retirement, she has been a philanthropist. She's been on the board of Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida. She's been on the director of the New College Foundation. She was the chair of the New College Board of Trustees, the first woman to serve in that position. She's been on the Visible Men Academy inaugural board, and others. She's very active in our local community and a very thoughtful person on many of these issues. So we thought she would be a great person to talk to about representation and what it means to have women in political office.
Absolutely. So let's bring her in.
Let's bring her on. We want Felice. While we're figuring out how to sell our merch online, let's do something a little more high-minded. Hey,
Absolutely.
Felice.
I know. So welcome, Felice.
Thank you. I have to get rid of my
paper. There's her actual face. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So I know you talked to Ashley. And Ashley, can I just dive in first because you two had a little preliminary conversation. Can you tell us about Ruth's List? I always say it's the Florida Emily's List, but I don't know if that's really true or not.
Well, essentially, I think that's an easy place for people to start. We were founded in 2008 by the Honorable Alex Sink, who was a former CFO for the state of Florida. And we were named after Ruth Bryan Owens. Everyone thinks it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but no, it was Ruth Bryan Owens, who was the first woman elected from the South to Congress in 1928. And in that role, she actually advocated for a cabinet level position called the Department of Home and Child.
Wow.
And later, she was appointed the ambassador to Denmark, which is interesting given what's going on today with Greenland, et cetera. I wonder how she would have sort of navigated that situation. But that's what it's named after. And our mission is to elect pro-choice Democratic women up and down the ballot across the state of Florida. So school board, city commission, county commission, public defender, state's attorney, all the way up to governor, if God bless, someday that could happen. But that's what our mission is. And we have a pretty good win rate. Last year, was an off year, but we had like an 82% win rate for the races
Wow.
that
That's
supported
huge.
candidates in. So we're hyper local, but we're very happy to go up. And actually in December, Eileen Higgins, who won the mayor's race in Miami, was a ruthless candidate. And that was the first woman, the first Democrat elected to be mayor in Miami in 30 years.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you really help candidates, maybe, I don't know, if especially at the lower level, really with a lot of the nuts and bolts. Many candidates come in maybe not really knowing how to be a political candidate, especially for lower offices to kind of work their way up. Is that accurate? I mean, what kinds of
Absolutely. We do a
support,
lot of
not just
training.
money?
No, we do training. We
Okay.
have a couple of boot camps every year. We teach people about fundraising and ground organizing and messaging.
Yeah.
We're very hands-on for the candidates that we support. We sit with them doing call time when they're calling constituents for fundraising activities because, the bottom line in politics now, you need money to win.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So forgive me if you don't know this, but do other states have the equivalent? I mean, some must.
Yes.
Do they
Yeah,
all? I mean, I'm just curious.
not all, but New York has Eleanor's Legacy.
Yes. Okay.
Annie's List is in Texas. Arizona's List is in Arizona. Lillian's List is in North Carolina. And every year at the Emily's List conference, a lot of us get together. We call our sister orgs and sort of share best practices and talk about, how we can advance the collective agenda.
Interesting.
So in full transparency, I am on the advisory board of Ruthless, so which I appreciate being part of. And I think one of the things that's interesting, and Scott, this goes to how much help does the organization give candidates who are considering running? But there's some really interesting numbers on how many times women have to be asked to run for office. It's a lot. It's rare that it's like, yes, I'm in and I'm going to do it. 8 times.
Okay,
that's the popular, mythology. But
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm not an expert in this particular field, but if you ask me why, I would say 1, they don't see it in themselves because of female socialization. 2, they don't see the models out there, but 3, it's a lifestyle issue for many women, especially women who have children or women who have elder dependents. It's a lifestyle issue, but are those really the reasons why, or what else? Why do we think that women are so much less likely to run for office?
Family responsibilities are a big part of it. I also think that the fundraising component can be intimidating for women.
More so than other aspects of political life.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the candidates I talk to from Ruthless are passionate about the idea of representing their communities. They're angry about the current state of affairs, and they really, really want to see change made. But the whole concept of, fundraising is intimidating. And I have to say this, women have less access to resources than men do. And, I remember, I was doing some fundraising activity, and there was a woman that I was with, and we were like struggling for every $1,000. And a woman said, my husband goes out to his golf club, he does a golf tournament, and he raises like $1 million in a day. Because all of his buddies are very affluent and they just throw money into it. And, that's the dynamic. And for the women, it's a lot tougher. And I think the gender biases, I think sometimes women don't see themselves as leaders. I can't tell you how many women, I've done a lot of work in executive coaching. Can't tell you how many women who diminish their accomplishments and don't see themselves as credible, inspiring candidates just because they don't see themselves that way. And men are like, oh, you know what? I'm a guy. I could do this. And I'm going to do it because I'm a guy.
Well, that touches on an issue, if we could just ping pong all over this topic,
okay,
that I feel strongly about, which is that it's not just they don't see themselves, they don't see other women in that role. I mean, statistic after statistic globally says people have this implicit bias, even if maybe intellectually they might not think that way, some might, but not seeing women as leaders. Both men and women have a very strong implicit bias that that's not who they see as a leader. So
because that's not their lived experience.
Right.
There are 34 countries that have had women leaders.
But
34
aren't most
countries.
of them parliamentary? Most of them are parliamentary, if I'm not mistaken, because I know it's a lot, just from my international stuff, it's a lot easier if you've got a party structure. And so you're up and you're not individually having to get elected, you're up in the party. And I think they can become leaders more easily.
Perhaps, but 34 countries have had female head of government and we have not. So, for little girls aspiring to see what their political career would be like, it's not like we have great role models. And, between Hillary and Kamala, people saw that they ran and run, but didn't win.
Mhm.
So it's not like, oh my gosh, I can win and be the president of the United States.
Yeah.
So I
It's
read some
very
really
aspirational.
interesting analysis about why roles like Senate and president are so much harder in our country. And there's a thinking that a lot of it also connects to our deeply wedded militarism, and that's so much a part of our culture that it is not of every country, and don't see their leaders, the head of the military in the free world. And people's ability to see a woman in that is absolutely mind-boggling, and it's just so hard for them. So women might get elected to local offices perhaps more readily, but a federal office like the president in charge of the military, think what that does to people's brains.
I think actually I think a lot of people would like to see women heading up the military because we're more about collaboration and consensus building than, blowing people up. I think, but if we would be naive if we don't talk about the role of money in this whole conversation. Because,
and Felice, sorry, I want to step back just a quick second to give some context of, we talked a little bit about internationally, but when we look at in the US right now, it's about 28, 29%. It's been there for a long time.
Women in elected political office.
Women and federally elected, and then state and municipal is a little higher. It gets all the way up to like 32%. So still really low numbers. So I just wanted to put that context.
Right.
And then I do want to talk about money because I think it's really interesting of where the money comes from too. So
I don't know if you guys follow what's going on in the legislature in Florida. I'm a big fan of a podcast called Seeking Rents, which is like the total nerd version of this guy looks at every bill and talks about who's funding it, who's lobbying for it, who's influencing it. So the money in politics goes to the people who are most likely to advocate for the things that the money people want. Mm-hmm. So the bills that have been in the Florida legislature this year are things about protecting Big Sugar from defamation suits and protecting large landowners so they can build whatever they want on their property without local governments having any input or constraints on them. That's what the guys have been sort of advocating for. On the other side, the women have been advancing bills that would restore abortion rights, that would close loopholes on gun control for domestic abusers, who would provide Medicaid for pregnant women. So think about who's going to fund those things. Big money is not going to fund those things, but those are actually the things that women care about and families care about. So the dynamic is so very, really it's about pay to play. And, when I talk to our women candidates, they're not excited about Big Sugar being able to be completely unfettered by regulation. They want local school boards to have authority over sex education. Those are the bills our women, and particularly ruthless women, are advocating for. So I think, it's a very interesting dynamic. And until women have access to more resources and more women get involved in the political, environment, not just organizing, but funding candidates, it's going to keep perpetuating this, in my opinion.
Yeah. And and we have a link to actually some of the fundraising statistics on big dollar donors or self-financing versus smaller, more focused on the smaller donations. And I don't think it's intentional. It's just women are getting the smaller dollar donors. And that just shows that difference between corporate interest, I think, versus what are the people, the community interested in supporting? And it's completely unfair playing field, but it's also really interesting. And Scott, I think that you would see this as a great thread of, no matter if it's in political fundraising or the amount of money that's philanthropically raised for women and girls, or VC venture capital money that's put into women, it's just statistically such an uphill battle of having access to those resources. It's
But actually, just a little bit of a sidebar. There's been lawsuits now about VC people who focus their efforts on women, and particularly African American women. They're getting sued by the federal government. They say it's discriminatory. So that's just like a sidebar issue. So there are tremendous barriers for women, both politically and economically.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my two thoughts are, and I don't endorse this, but for many, many years I said the thing that has the most explanatory power for American politics is the business of America is business. It's always been business. The business of our government is business. I mean, I can't like it, but I tell people from other countries, it is not really to represent little people. That's a nice fiction that we've got here, I admit it. But it's business, it's private interest. So I totally agree with you, Felice, about where the money's going. Then it's like, well, what happens? I mean, 1% of the last statistic, supposedly 1% of philanthropy goes to quote unquote women's issues. How they measure that is tough, but that's because most of it goes to things like alumni and churches and stuff, most actual philanthropy. And the vast majority of that goes to things like reproductive rights, the vast majority of that small pool. So it's not going to go to some of these other legislative issues. There's no question. But government is there to represent business. I mean, that's what it does.
Well, and in the countries where women lead or have a higher percentage of or better represented in government, they have access to universal child care. They have access to universal health care. They have access to, so many things that American families would value. A paid parental leave. It's a much greater degree here. So, when people say if women could lead, what would it look like? I think it would look great for women and families and children.
Well, even things like higher minimum wage, women are the vast majority of minimum wage workers, But yeah, I mean, there's no question. But I think that raises an underlying issue, which Ashley and I talk about a lot, which is why people have to have that experience to bring it to the table. Why can't men represent? I mean, we have representative government. Let's say we have a female elected leader. Presumably, she's going to represent all interests in her district, right? Not just quote unquote female interests. I don't think we're trying to say that. But if men are exclusively or almost exclusively in elected office, and men have, for example, very, very little experience in childcare, because we know women bear the brunt. If they had 50% of the childcare, they might bring a greater awareness to the table. There's nothing inherently that says a man in political office can't raise the issue of childcare. But because they overwhelmingly have so little experience with it, it's not on the radar. It's just not on. Even if we, with the best of intentions, let's say it's not on the radar. Maybe they're opposed, but it's not there because they don't have the lived experience.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that, because of so many of the times when I've seen people debate abortion bills, these guys get up there and talk about it like they know something, and it's clearly they don't know anything about women's reproductive health. And they're out there opining and deciding for women about their reproductive health. But, I can't, there are men's groups that are advocating for women's issues. There's a group called Men for Choice, who's done extraordinary work in that space. And they were out door knocking for Eileen Higgins in Miami and for Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. I mean, they wanted her to win because they care about this issue. But I would say that men can advocate for women and families issues, but what we see is they don't. No, men make up the majority of the, elected officials, in the legislature and everywhere else, pretty much. And our lived experience is that they're not advocating for women and families. So yeah, they can, but they don't.
No, they don't. And I think it's, in addition to lived experience, I agree with you. It's also socialization. Men are socialized to avoid anything feminine and to even be advocating. I mean, that is part of the masculine box, is you eschew stuff that's pink, that's feminine. I mean, that is the most anti-masculine thing you can do. So even if they're not thinking that concretely, it is. You don't want to start talking about childcare and who changes diapers and stuff. That's a feminine issue and
Right,
part of the
right. That's
masculine
not macho.
code.
That's not for the
That's
bro. That's
not
not for
part of
the.
the
That's not for
masculine
the
code.
bros.
I mean, and that's still the worst thing you can call a man is something that's feminized. And so that gets to really deep-seated socialization, to get men exactly. I always say when it comes to choice issues, last I checked, it took a man and a woman to even have the choice issue going on. So, why is this just a women's issue? But
Well, and it's the same thing
interesting.
with how many male elected officials have families, a lot of them. But
Oh yeah.
that is not that does not seem to be a major concern or a barrier to running for office, where women, and it's just like I was on a panel and they asked the question, how do you handle work-life balance? And my response after poorly was, if we were a panel of men, would this even be a question? Like, what, and I think it is that socialization of family responsibility is female.
Yeah, but Ashley, this is digression. You shouldn't say poorly. Do you know how many men handle that work-life balance terribly if they have families who never see their kids? Would they
True,
dream
true.
of saying poorly? You're probably doing great. I mean,
I'm
really,
crushing it.
you're crushing it.
Wait, but this goes back to my earlier comment. Women are so self-effacing. You need a lot of confidence to run for office.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. And if you are thinking I manage my life poorly, or I'm just to this, or I'm just to that, you are unlikely to have the confidence necessary to put yourself out there to do the incredible hard work of running for office. It is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Well, and a big part of that, sorry, Scott, is the media bias and how women are reported on, and it goes to appearance or qualifications, or what are they wearing, and all of those things that are just, as I was diving into all of that research, I knew it was true, but it's really depressing to see how much of that bias occurs.
And it's not just men. Women hold women accountable to an incredibly high standard.
Women are deeply socialized with that, to judge other women on things like appearance. Drives me nuts. Yeah.
Agreed.
And we saw this with female candidates. I mean, women, that's what they will talk about, and they feel so deeply concerned about the size of some woman candidate's high heel or not high heel or something. And it's like, just get that.
Right.
Okay, but wait, I want to go back to Ruth's list for a minute.
Okay, sure.
Specifically, yes.
Love to talk about. I'm very happy and proud to talk about Ruth's list.
Yeah. So no, I'm really curious about more. So for example, you said that women need confidence, or often it's like a lifestyle issue. It's a family issue. You can't solve these things, but I mean, how does Ruth's list try to work with candidates around those kind of issues?
We try to sort of meet them where they are, and we try to provide them with the resources. I mean, we don't give them lots of money because we don't raise lots of money, just like all the other women candidates and causes. But we try to help them understand how they can manage their campaigns in a way that's going to be sensitive to their personal family situations. We encourage them to take maybe a different path than some of their male candidates. Maybe they don't do all-night events, or they can do more weekend events so they can take care of some of the family responsibilities. And we really coach them through how do they maximize the time that they can be effectively campaigning without compromise. But we also we do what I call sober selling. Before a candidate signs up to be a candidate, we say, what kind of support system do you have in place? Do you have family and friends that can help you with this? Because it will take a village to help you get through this. And and we help them understand what are the complexities of it, what are the challenges of it, and they go into this clear-eyed. And for example, Liz Barker here in Sarasota, her husband steps up. When she was running, he was a great partner to her, and she has 4 kids. So we see that, there are people in our networks who are so enthusiastic about what we're trying to accomplish that they'll step up to help us.
And if I understand right, correct me if I'm wrong, I should say, there's some emphasis also on getting women kind of at very much lower levels, county officials, that kind of stuff, because those are stepping stones and that's where they can do. It's not just maybe the name brand Congress or Senate or something like that.
We're hyper local focused. So we are, we love school board, we love city commission, we love county commission. We do city councils everywhere. We just won a Tampa race, Nia Young won there, and that was a flip opportunity, which we took advantage of. So, we think hyper local is super important, and that's where we can actually have the most impact. Unless we can start chipping away at the super majority in Tallahassee, we can actually have more impact locally than we can have at the state level. But we are determined to get rid of that super majority because I call it the stupid majority.
So as we're getting close to having to wrap up, and there's so much to talk about here, when people are looking at the candidates, and especially I think women, what are some of the things that we should be looking at of, is it from policy wise or questions we can ask?
I think I don't
understand the question.
So as there's so much noise around politics right now, Scott. So focusing in to give people a couple of things of when you're looking at your candidates.
When they're like thinking about selecting a candidate. Okay, yeah. I apologize. Yep.
That's okay.
Okay, so for first-time candidates, it's hard because you can't look at their track record, but look at what you ask them the questions like, why are you doing this? What have you done in the past that would indicate that you would represent my interests? And I think that's the important thing. When I tell people what they should be focusing on in terms of candidates, I'm saying be selfish. Look for people who will advocate for you. First of all, I say to people, why don't you run and advocate for you? But I don't get, 100% enthusiastic response to that. But look at the candidates and see what they have done. So for example, if all of this is available to us on the internet, if you're looking at someone like Fentress Driscoll, who was the House Minority Leader, if you look at her track record of the bills that she has put forward, the amendments she has put forward, you can see what she cares about and what she is advocating for. So don't trust necessarily what candidates who've already been in the political sphere say. Trust what they have done. And I think that's what I suggest. Be selfish. Look for people who care about the things you care about. You care about the environment. Look at a Lindsay Cross. You care about women's reproductive health care. Look at a Fentress Driscoll or a Tracy Davis. These women are out there advocating for things that so many people care about. And that's what you have to look at. And then on the other side, if let's say you're an environmental person, a Lindsay Cross is fantastic. Look at the guys who are trying to protect Big Sugar and these giant developers. Those would be people that you should vote against. Last 2024 was such a shocking year for me. 57.2% of Floridians voted yes on 4, yet they reelected all of the people that put in a 6-week abortion ban. So I think people, shouldn't be looking at, I worry about people who only look at the R or the D. I say, look at what this person has done and how they have voted.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, that kind of schizophrenia, though, we saw that in so many races all over the nation. Absolutely. People who would split on some issue, on a ballot issue, or one candidate and the other. It's fascinating. I don't spend all my time looking at that political stuff.
It was astonishing.
All over the country. So many local and state races were like that. It's like, wait a minute, you went for this at the top and this here, and it's, I'd leave it to somebody else to say what the lessons are, but we did see that.
So we have lots of data and links to reports that we would encourage you. We'll put them in the show notes that we would just encourage people to look at and see what's happening and some of the real benefits of what women in leadership bring to the table and the impact it has on us. And Scott, I don't know if you have a question before, but I would like for Felice to leave us with what is a one thing or maybe a couple of things that you want to leave the listeners with from this conversation?
Go right ahead.
Women, when women are in leadership roles, they are incredibly effective. I mean, during COVID, we saw countries and states run by women leaders fared so much better than states that were led by men. So I think that's something to think about. I want people to not be discouraged by the current state of politics today, but to be motivated to make change. I always say I can be aggravated or I can be activated. I choose to be activated. And I think everyone who's right now feeling a tremendous sense of loss of control and frustration about the current state of affairs on all sides of the aisle. No, so many people are dissatisfied with the level of leadership now. It's our responsibility to change it. And we can do that. We can't be complacent about it, and we have to be educated about it.
Thank you. And I think I would add, which is not to put words in your mouth, I'll own them. I think we also have to listen to other perspectives. You're right. Both sides of the aisle just like pissed at a lot of leadership. I think it really behooves us to listen to what other people are saying, even if we don't agree with them, and try to understand that. We talk about that a lot here. Just bludgeoning one side through is not working in America. We're a very diverse nation, and we have to live with that diversity, I think.
And if we can find the common kind of objectives, and there's so many that are common objectives. Everyone wants to be prosperous. Everyone wants to have health care. Everyone wants good education for their children. We can find those common grounds. Then let's find candidates who care about those things. And let's not care if they're red, pink, blue, yellow, green, Martian. Let's just elect them.
I think that's a great way to leave it. Thank you for joining
us.
Thank you,
please.
Thank you for the time.